Hello from Southern Ontario, May 10th today. So, cyberly, yesterday I went to Australia. I wanted to see what was going on down there with the cashless thing, CBDCs, and I'm pretty vague on what's going on in their parliament with the WEF and all that WEF business. I ended up instead watching news from Australia regarding the immigration problems in the EU and the UK. Yeah. Which is kind of why I'm making another video regarding the mass migration issues over there. We're not seeing it here in Canada. It's not on our mainstream media, at least to any extent at all. Bill C-18 and C-11. They didn't and don't want to see us. What happened with the farmer happened and is happening with the farming revolts, protests, I guess I should say, and the problem with the newcomers. Maybe I should use that politically correct term, the newcomers. Seems a lot of the problems over there are undocumented asylum seekers. The people in the boats hammering across the French Channel, and as they're assured they're going to land in the UK, they toss their documents and their cell phones over the side of the boat into the English Channel. So anyways, now the UK, of course, isn't part of the EU and not under the constraints then of the EU Parliament, Brexit, right? So I gather, I haven't got a total handle on it, that some legislation in Britain is being passed or something, that they're going to start deportations. They don't have the restrictions of the EU Parliament as regards the whole newcomer policies, political policies. Rwanda is mentioned in this in Britain, and they're, perhaps I better say, because I haven't got a handle on it, deportations. The result, another 20,000 migrants, newcomers, have crossed the border and fled into Ireland, exacerbating Ireland's problems, which I've discussed in previous videos. We still see massive protests in Dublin and in Ireland. Their government doesn't seem to be listening to them. The protesters, that is, and the Irish government. I see I have a small following in Ireland. Give me some feedback on what your take is on all that. I'd appreciate it. Anyways, it seems like about half of the 27 European Union countries are flipping around and saying we've got problems with mass migration, and it's time we start recognizing this and dealing with it. A quick Google search showed Australia, Denmark, Italy, Poland, the Netherlands, Slovakia, Norway, Greece, France, the aforementioned UK, which isn't part of the EU, and Denmark are all making changes. And it should be noted that not all of those governments are right-wing. A lot of them are still left-wing, but they're realizing the cost of I'll say unbridled, unchecked mass migration. And it's not just in dollars and cents. Something strange that's happening is apparently with the EU dictates, I guess I'll say, regarding mass migration. Once an asylum seeker lands in a country that's pro-immigration, I'll say, they're not supposed to go anywhere else. They're not supposed to be shopping for who has the superior welfare state, right? But there doesn't seem to be any ability for what ends up as the final host country to stop that. Someone can come from, well, I better say a foreign land. It doesn't matter where they come from. They can float through Europe and decide, it's kind of referred to as welfare shopping, who's got the best place. Well, that's not supposed to be happening. And yet, the final host country following the EU Parliament dictates, can't deport them. So it's kind of a useless sort of rule, if that's even the right word for it. And what we see Ireland, well, that's happening because even if Britain was the first place they landed in, then they're supposed to stay there. But now Britain's saying, no, we're going to start deporting them, so they go somewhere else. And did they end up in Britain in the first place, or did they come from Italy and came across by boat from France to the UK and then now ends up in Ireland? You see what I'm saying? But the reason we'll probably do more videos on this subject matter is, again, we're not seeing it in Canada. They don't want us to see it. And yet we have the same thing happening here. I mean, and again, it's not the migrants' faults, the newcomers, to be politically correct. They don't know what they're getting into when they come to Canada. When they get here, they realize that, well, they were kind of duped. They were sold a bill of goods. It was to be the land of milk and honey, and they get here and find we're overtaxed. They end up with crap jobs, low-paying jobs, and yeah, there's a housing shortage and crisis, which brings me back to Europe and the UK. They have housing crisis, housing shortage, tent cities, economic problems, all the things we have in Canada, all stemming from we didn't make any planning here in Canada, did we? I mean, we just said, well, okay, we're just going to open the doors, but what planning did we make? And again, the newcomers aren't at fault. And yet then, well, then I've rambled long enough. We get into exacerbating prejudice and so on and so forth, but I see I'm headed for 8 minutes here now, so anyways, I'm just talking about it because, again, we're not seeing what's happening over there. But I'll stop this video here.